Thanks for being here. We've been talking for weeks because we knew you were coming on the show, so it's kind of like invigorated all the women on the show.
Oh, good.
Everybody that works here.
We like invigorated women.
Well, you know, it's a different culture than when we watched our moms have.
Yeah.
It just really is for women, especially, you know, we're in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Where there's a different standard for, you know, youth
just about everything.
Revered as,
Yeah.
you know, the almighty thing. And but for a lot of us women in our late 30s and 40s,
Yeah.
for me, I just, you know, it's a whole thing to be divorced and on your own.
Yeah.
But there is something really wonderful about it as well. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be so feared.
Yeah, well, aloneness shouldn't be so feared. And I think one of the things that I found when I was researching the book that was just showed up again and again in study after study after study is that marriage benefits men a lot more than it benefits women. Married women do not perform as well as single women in life in any measure whatsoever. And married men outperform single men like in stratospheric numbers, which makes me nuts because it's like, why do we still then have this idea that women are desperate to marry and men are desperately fighting against it, being dragged kicking and screaming into the thing that would probably be the best thing for them in the world, and women fighting to try to trap somebody into something that will end up entrapping them. It bugs me.
I know, and it's fascinating because you even say that men who are married live longer and women who are married
Yeah.
live shorter lives.
Yeah, men who are married live longer, they make more money than single men, they're healthier, they're happier, they suffer less from depression and alcoholism, they're less likely to die a violent death. In every possible regard, they have a better life. And women who are married don't live as long as single women. They're not as healthy. They're more likely to suffer from alcoholism and depression. They're more likely to die a violent death.
Oh my gosh.
And we just found out in the New York Times
I should have got divorced
a couple
years
weeks ago.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not making light because it's a very tough thing.
No, it is. And it's, you know, when we just found out in the New York Times a couple weeks ago that married women on average weigh 10 pounds more than their single counterparts. So it's like, where does the indignity end? You know? So it's grim. And before we all lay down and weep, because that's
Right.
what it makes me want to do, there's encouraging news, you know, like there's ways to mitigate that. And it does seem to be the case that the women in America who consistently call themselves happiest married are those who waited longest to do it, had the fewest
time
number
to
of
figure out
kids,
who they are.
set up their own life, got their autonomy, got their education, got their economic independence, and then found somebody to go to the movies with, basically. Like, you know, like, oh, I don't really want to be alone anymore, so I need a partner.
But I got to tell you, I have a friend of mine who's a really great person. She's educated and funny and outgoing and traveled the world.
Yeah.
She's never been married, and she literally said to me one night recently, "At least you can tell people you were divorced." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I just feel like people look at me like something's wrong with me because I'm in my 40s and I've never been married." And she said, "I think people think there must be something wrong."
You know, there's something, I'm glad you said this because when I was researching the book, I never was one really for the huge fantasy of the wedding and the marriage, but I have a lot of friends who do have
Well,
that.
our age group, remember Lady Diana's wedding?
Oh my
I was
God.
like, oh, I want that.
I got up at 4 in the morning with my mom to watch it, but I
Me
was
too.
12. By the time I was like 15, I kind of dropped that whole idea.
Wow, you were a fast
You know,
learner.
but I
hung on to it until I was 30.
But I asked one of my friends who's always desperately wanted to be married, what's it about really, you know? And she said, I want the wedding. And this is a really bright, you know, really educated, successful, fabulous person. She said, I want the wedding because I want that one day of evidence to the whole world and to myself that I am worthy of being chosen by somebody. And I think that's what a lot of women do, is they want that non-negotiable proof, like I'm a treasure. It was interesting for me because while I was working on the book, I traveled all over Southeast Asia and I talked to women from different cultures, and it was comic how different their views are about marriage than what I had been raised with. Like they were pointing and laughing at me when I was asking them, what's the secret to a happy marriage? They're like, who told you that marriage is about happiness? Like they're like, but why do those things go together? Like they just, like to them, the whole point of marriage is it's a social role and you find somebody who fits the job description and then you fill out your life elsewhere. You don't necessarily go into it assuming that your husband's going to be your soulmate, that word we're allergic to, you know, your best friend, your intellectual companion, your solace, the love of your life, the partner to raise your children. It's somebody that you need to keep the roles intact in the society. It's a totally different kind of thing. It's too late for us to do that, but it's interesting just to give us perspective that the way we do it is kind of new.
Yeah, that's true. And there is great joy in being married as well, which we're going to talk about too when we come back. Liz and I will be joined by our friends Jane Kasmarek and Kristen Cavallari. So stay tuned.